My high school career guidance system was horrible. And a byproduct of that was this constant belief that getting a scholarship and having financial avenues to universities abroad or in great universities was this absolutely Herculean task which only people with this Albert Einstein kind of IQ could achieve. But with more research, I've realized that this notion is completely wrong, and I don't want people in my community and hopefully other communities who might have trouble believing in themselves kind of fall into this trap where people think that financial education could be impossible, if anything. So the format of this video is where I'll be speaking about the different types of scholarships and the different financing options that people have, and how they could find these scholarships and financing options so that they wouldn't kind of go through this stressful period of time alone, hopefully. And I'm definitely open to questions after this video. I think the first thing I want to cover is the different types of scholarships or financing options that people have. The first financing option would be financial aid. The second would be merit scholarships, and the third would be exemptions and advanced credits. I will get into these types later. But one thing you need to realize is that each university has different terminologies for even these kind of types of scholarships, and there are different avenues of getting to these scholarships. So the first financing option that you need to think of is financial aid, as I mentioned before. And your financial aid is generally going to be based on your financial need, and that means your university is going to assess the gap of funds that you have. So for example, if your university tuition fee would be 40,000 and your parents or your guardians or whoever who will be funding your education would be willing to provide 20,000, that means there is a gap of 20,000, obviously, and that gap would be your financial need. And financial aid would be kind of trying to address that financial need that you have, and they'll be trying to cut the costs. And generally, like not generally rather, but like people try their best to kind of, or universities rather try their best to cover that entire gap they have in the most sincere way they could. And obviously financial aid comes in different forms. Like you could either apply for financial aid before you get into university, and in my case I actually applied for financial aid once I got into university, and I've been getting financial aid ever since. Every year I'll be getting like a decent amount of financial aid, and that definitely helps me with my work, my day-to-day work. So for any form of financial aid, all you really need to do is to prove your financial kind of status. So in my case, I'll be filling what my expenses are and what my income is, and the gap will be taken into account, and the university will kind of investigate on each person's case and assess how much financial aid could be given to a respective person. And I believe this generally happens on an annual basis for most schools, where like your financial status is kind of checked every year. Like in my case, I realized that I got a little less financial aid this year because I got internship, and they realized that I'll be getting a decent income. But whenever my income fluctuates, I could definitely kind of let them know, and the university, depending on their financial aid office, will try their best to kind of address that situation. Financial aid works very differently in each universities, but I think this is the general kind of framework that most universities follow. But I think universities in the US have a different kind of financial aid policy than the ones in Canada and Australia and countries of that nature. So I've already spoken about this in one of my previous videos, and I'll be referencing this video right now for you to understand the financial aid policies that many schools in the United States of America have. And I hope that gives you a bit more clarity on how you could address your financial aid situation. In the US, there's this system called the need-based versus the need-blind system, where in the need-based system, they actually factor in your financial need to decide whether you get into university or not. So if they think that we can't actually fund the financial need that you have, you might not get into that university, and that might be the only reason why you might not get into that university. A need blind school is as such that they'd actually see they have a different department to kind of like assess your financial needs, and there's a different department to actually assess your admission. So like they'd see, okay, we can give you X amount of aid if you get into school. Like, so your acceptance and your financial aid are independent from each other, if that makes sense. The second type of scholarships, and this is the more tricky sense of scholarships, would be merit scholarships, because these scholarships are based on your merit, and that means it's based on your achievements, the academic achievements or non-academic achievements that you've had in the past. And you never really know whether you'll be getting a decent amount of money or whether you'll be getting money at all, because there are only a limited amount of merit scholarships given by a university every year, and you need to compete with the application pool that will be competing for the merit scholarship. My general trick for securing and having like a sure shot chance or like a relatively sure shot chance at a merit scholarship is to apply to a university that I would consider a settled university. And what a settled university is a university that you're definitely going to get into, and their minimum requirement for entry or their admission requirement is not as strict in comparison to your talent. So for example, if I have something like 3 A stars for my A levels and the university only asks for 3 Bs, I probably have a decently good chance of securing a merit scholarship there, because the application pool over there might not be as strong in comparison to a university that has a minimum requirement of 3 A stars as entry, if that makes sense. So the easier the university is to get into, the easier the application pool is to navigate through, if that makes sense. So that's one trick you definitely have. And the other trick obviously is that you need to plan ahead and secure good achievements and have a consistency of achieving good things across your high school career, because there is no real way of cheating your way through merit scholarships, because it's directly going to be based on your records. And I think part of the challenge is also to stand out from the application pool, right? And something you need to know with people who will be applying to scholarships is that they are already confident about their grades. So when people are confident about their grades, you can't just get excellent grades and expect to get a scholarship. That's not really guaranteed. So it's best to kind of get yourselves involved in extracurriculars and non-academic activities and find a way to stand out from the application pool, because that's if you're going to have this relative amount of consistency of having initiative and going out there and achieving things outside your classroom, it definitely shows up very well in your application in comparison to someone who just study and get good grades. So that's definitely something to keep in mind. I'll be making a series as to how people could stand out in different applications pool, whether it's your university application pool or whether it's a scholarship application pool. But it's definitely important to kind of plan ahead and have a relative consistency of achievement, because that's really the only way you can hack into merit scholarships. So the way you find merit scholarships is that you can go into the scholarships page of your respective university and you can filter out the different scholarships that be applicable to you. So there are certain scholarships that will only be allowed for domestic students. There are certain scholarships that will only be allowed for international students, and there will be scholarships that are allowed for both types of students. And when you filter these things out and when you understand how much money you might get, you'll be able to have a better financial plan about your university journey, and you could kind of plan ahead much better. And you could also kind of understand the competition that you might be able to face. And each scholarships have a different nature, and they might place emphasis into a certain set of achievements. For example, I might not necessarily want to apply to sports scholarship because I haven't been something like a national kind of athlete, so I might not really stand out in that kind of application pool. But there might be different other scholarships that I might kind of stand out on. So that's something to keep in mind, and just make sure that you do your research on that end. Another avenue people take for searching for scholarships is that they go onto their government websites and they filter out the scholarships accordingly. That's another avenue that people could take very easily, especially if you don't know which universities you might apply to. For example, in my case, I knew exactly the 13 universities I applied to and the 13 universities I want to go to, and I kind of figured those universities out by going through each university's website. But if you want this one central database there, you could kind of see what scholarships are available. There are certain avenues where you could go to this general website and they host a database of different scholarships that you can go over. There's this one channel and this one video that I will reference in this video, and you could have an in-depth look about it, but this is the general kind of procedure for that. The third form of financing that I personally think is the most underrated financing option and the most underutilized financing option would be exemptions and or advanced credits. Exemptions are when you have specific subjects cut off, and advanced credits are when you get credits before you enter university. I'll explain this further, obviously. But for example, in my case, I got 30 credits cut off from a 120 credit degree. That means I got a complete year cut off and I don't need to pay for this year. So that essentially becomes a financing option. And the way you achieve that is by doing standardized exams when you're in high school. So what I've noticed with a lot of students in Canada is that they don't have standardized exams on their transcript. So they just do their board exams and they just finish off. And that's something a lot of Sri Lankan students who go to like local schools kind of do. But international schools in Sri Lanka, we definitely prioritized standardized testing with organizations like Cambridge or edXL, and they provide either advanced level exams or like in the US it will be APs, for example, where you do these exams and they cut off a chunk of your degree because that is a validated form of education for those respective subjects that those universities offer. And the universities place trust in these organizations that provide these exams, and they ensure that the student doesn't really need to do this set of courses. And I think that's such a marvelous, and if anything, like it saves you so much money. Like in my case, like that saved me about 40,000 Canadian dollars and this is without my scholarship. Like on top of the scholarship, I'll be saving much more. So that's just like a very beautiful financing option that people need to research on. So definitely look at the different credits that you can get through your university entrance. And the important part is that you can factor that amount into your university calculations too. So for example, if I didn't get an exemption, I might not actually be able to attend McGill with my financial situation. And this exemption definitely helped my family and myself a lot during this process, especially because the interest rates went down in Sri Lanka and whatnot. And what I did through university is that I used this flexibility to kind of spread out my degree to 4 years and focus on getting internships. And with internships, I was able to fund my degree or like my living at least completely. And it's just been a much easier process that way. So this is such a goldmine that I don't think people utilize as much. And I think it's definitely worth looking into, if anything. I hope this video kind of gave you a decent understanding of how you could finance a degree and different options you have when it comes to financing your degree. And I'm pretty sure you still have more questions about it, which I'm very open to kind of answer. So you can reach me in any way that works for you. And all my socials are on my YouTube description. And I'll be attaching 2 things that I think would help you in the process of financing your degree. Obviously, you'd have to do the research of going to different universities that you'll be interested in and finding their financial aid policies, because I'm not going to remember everything off the top of my head. But what I could do to make the process easy is that I could give you one document that my friend Munir kind of sent off to me, because this gives this entire image of this entire document about the different financial aid policies that each university in the United States has, and it can give you like a much clearer image about what kind of financial aid you can expect from these universities if you do get in. And the other link or the other resource that I could provide is a newsletter that I have been following very recently, where this newsletter kind of updates international students or students in general about the different scholarship opportunities and even the different internship opportunities that US and Canada and different other countries kind of provide for students. And I think that will definitely be like an extremely great resource, because it kind of gives you once again like a central kind of sense of information where you might not need to go around and search for different universities off the top of your head. So I hope this video has been helpful, like I said before, and if you have any questions, definitely reach out. I'll be extremely happy to answer. Thank you for watching if you've reached thus far, and I hope this channel has been helpful. Thank you.